So you came here to learn how to play Rammus. Well, I'm sure you've seen people play him before and build him straight tank. A lot of armor and magic resist and health, and just make him one tanky little armadillo. And that's one way to play him. And I'm here to show you a different way to play him. It's as an AP Offtank. So check out this video if you want to see how to play him in a new sort of way. I'm Dookey Lukey, and I love playing Rammus as an AP Offtank. It is very viable with the new Hex Tech items and is really strong again. First off, let me explain when choosing him is a good idea. If your team already has a tanky top and or support, and if you have one AP champion, then you are good to go. If your team is too squishy, it'll be hard to make this work. And if you already have a lot of AP, then it won't be as useful because the enemy team will be more likely to build resistances. However, in the situation I just mentioned, AP Offtank Rammus will be fantastic. Let's understand why I build him as an off-tank instead of a full tank. His passive is great with armor, and being tanky works really well with his kit because he can deal a ton of damage with his ultimate and disrupt the enemy team with all of his abilities, and his W scales with armor as well. However, let's take a look at his abilities and the ratios with them. His passive Spiked Shell grants bonus attack damage equal to 25% of his bonus armor. His Q, Powerball, turns you into a ball that gains movement speed over the duration. You exit this form after 7 seconds or upon coming in contact with a non-friendly unit. On contact, you knock them up and slow them for 2 seconds after. This ability has a 100% AP ratio. His W, Defensive Ball Curl, gives you bonus resistances, both magic and armor, and makes it so that attackers take damage when they use basic attacks against you. His E, Puncturing Taunt, taunts an enemy and forces them to chase after you and basic attack you for its duration, and reduces their armor while taunted as well. Lastly, his ultimate, Tremors, causes an earthquake around him for 8 seconds, dealing magic damage to all enemy units and structures. The maximum damage is 520 to 1560 based on its rank, and it has a 240% AP ratio for the full duration, which means 30% AP ratio per second. Here's the reason I like building him as an AP Offtank instead of straight tank. His Q has a 100% AP ratio, and this is huge, and his ultimate has a 240% AP ratio for the duration, which is also insane. That right there is a ton of damage when you build just a bit of ability power. Also, I want to look at his W as well. It gives you bonus resistances. At rank 1, it gives you 40 armor and magic resist when active. That is a ton for a rank 1 ability. And at its max rank, it gives you 120 bonus resistances in both magic resist and armor, and that is insane. Even though it does scale with your bonus armor, it's only at a 10% ratio, which is not that effective. Having ability power makes you be able to do a ton of damage, but using your W also lets you be able to remain quite tanky even without building many tanky items. This is very important, and knowing which items to build is also really important, so let's get right into that. Before getting your items, you're going to have to choose your runes and masteries. For the runes, I go Seals of Armor, Marks of Magic Penetration, Glyphs of Ability Power, and Quintessence of Ability Power as well. And for the masteries, I put 12 points into Ferocity, and I put 18 points into Cunning, getting Thunderlord's Decree as my keystone mastery. First off, you want to start with a Hunter's Talisman and a refillable potion. After the first 3 or 4 camps, go back and upgrade your refillable potion to a Hunter's Potion. Then move into your core items, which are Upgraded Boots, Stalker's Blade with the Runic Echoes enchantment, and Hextech Protobelt 01. These are your core items because with this build you're going to want to have a lot of burst. And the Echoes does a bunch of damage on contact, and the Protobelt's active Firebolt also does a lot of damage. And its active is a gap closer. On top of this, Protobelt can proc the Echoes passive with its active. And it can also be used while in Powerball, letting you be able to close the distance and knock up your enemies even easier. Next, you want to build Thornmail. This is a great item on Rammus because the armor is fantastic with his passive, and the passive of Thornmail synergizes well with your W and E. This makes attackers who hit you with basic attacks take damage from 2 sources. Thornmail, and your W, and your taunt forces them to use basic attacks on you. If you are behind and the enemy team is mostly AD, I would build this second and get Protobelt third instead. After you pick up your core 3 items, you have 2 more items to choose from, and this greatly varies depending on whatever you need. So you can either go with some more damage items like these, or you can go with some tankier items like these. 2 items that I prefer to pick up after Thornmail are Rylai's Crystal Scepter and Zhonya's Hourglass, and I'm going to explain why I think that they are so great on Rammus, especially as an AP Offtank. As an AP Offtank, you want tanky stats like health, armor, magic resist, and you also want ability power, and both of these offer just that. Rylai's has health, ability power, and an awesome passive, and Zhonya's has armor, ability power, and an amazing active that synergizes really well with Rammus's whole kit. Rylai's is so great because the slow can be activated by your ultimate, which goes off every second for 8 seconds, so slowing everybody who's around you. And it also is activated by Hextech Protobelt 01, so you can slow people from a distance, also from the runic echoes. So when you use your Protobelt can slow them, and then the echoes can bounce to other people and slow them as well, which is really, really useful. Zhonya's is also really useful because you can run into the middle of a team fight with your Powerball, knock somebody up, taunt them to stay attacking you, use your ultimate with Rylai's to slow them down, and then if they try to fight you, you just go into stasis, and they have to sit on top of your ultimate, which is doing a bunch of damage every second. So this is the optimal way to play him in a team fight, and both of these items really allow you to use his kit to its fullest potential. Knowing when to gank a lane is a fundamental part of jungling and is pretty basic as well. I'm going to outline some of the basics to make it easier for you, especially if you don't play much jungle. All of these are going to be from the blue team's perspective, which means that you start on the bottom left side of the map. This can all also be translated to the other side of the map as long as you just flip everything. So first things first, let's look at what it takes to gank a lane. There are times when you can for sure gank a lane, and I'm going to go through it for each top, mid, and bot. And one of them is depending on the enemy's position. So here, as you can see, if the enemy is anywhere in the green zone, they are more than open for a gank. It means that they are overextended, and then you can just come in and use your combo, and you guys can probably pick up a kill. If they're in the yellow, it's still possible, but it's going to be a little bit easier for them to retreat back to the tower and is not a sure thing. And if they're in the red zone, I most likely would not go for this unless they are extremely weak and you are very comfortable that you guys can pull off the dive. When ganking a lane, it's also important to know which path to take. And so in top lane, if they're in the green zone, I would take either path 1 or 2. 1 allows you to get behind them and it forces them to maybe run through the river to try to escape, or to just run straight back into you to try to get back to their turret. Number 2 works well if they're really overextended as well and you just need to get there faster. Number 3 is called a lane gank, where you come up behind your laner through the bush, and that is usually when your team is overpushed towards the enemy's turret. That way, when the laner tries to get some CS, you can roll out of the bush and gank them. In the mid lane, there's 2 ways that you can gank. You can either come through the river, like in paths 1 and 2, where you come out of the bush and just gank them, or you can come around behind them from their turret, like in 3 and 4. 3 and 4 are pretty good when they're not too pushed up and you want to kind of surprise them. And 1 and 2 are far more expected, but are also good because you can just come flying out of the bush. It really depends on where they're positioned and where you are coming from as well. Lastly, in bot lane, if they are over pushed, you can come through either tri-brush, like in 1, or through the river in 2, and come up behind them. Coming through 1 gives you a bigger chance of getting spotted by a ward because they usually do ward that bush. And number 2 can also be warded, so you will be spotted at both of those points if you take path 1. Path 2 is a little bit safer. Path 3 is also a lane gank like I explained before, where you come into the bush when the enemy team or when your team is overpushed and you want to gank the enemy team when they push back. Once you switch into the team fighting phase, it's going to be a little bit different how you play Rammus. So playing him as an off tank makes it a little bit more difficult because you have to be able to go in and stay alive. And since you're not as tanky, it's a little harder. And you still have to fly at the enemy with your power ball and kind of put yourself in the middle of everyone. That's why I really like getting Zhonya's, because it makes team fighting a lot easier for you. Because if they pile up on you, it's actually a good thing because you'll just be dealing a lot of damage and distracting them from your carries. So what you can do is you can either get picks, flank them, basically just wait it out, or peel for your carries. So if you're going to get a pick, you kind of just like ward a bush, pink a bush somewhere, or sweep it, and just hope the enemy comes by, or find someone who's out on their own and just boom, blow them up, catch them off guard, and just jump on them. If you're going to flank the enemy, you try to find a path around them and get in behind them and attack their carries. And you can Q flash onto them, which is pretty strong. Use your actives and then ult and use your Zhonya's and just kind of sit there and kill their team and wait for your team to follow up. Or you can just wait for an opportunity, which means you're kind of just sitting more on the outside of the fight and waiting for a good time to use your power ball, whether someone steps up, gets out of position, or whatnot. This is basically just letting your tanks kind of do the work, and then you fly in when you can. And then the other way of playing it is to peel for your carries. This is also really good. You wait for someone like an ADC or their assassin or something like that to hop in and try to take out your ADC or your AP carry, and then you just taunt them away, powerball them, and use your ult and stuff. Use everything you got, and you can usually do a pretty good job at peeling because your kit allows you to do so. So these are the few different ways that you can play, and in team fights, you just want to make sure that you are positioning yourself well to be able to peel for your team, as well as trying to get at their squishies as well. So I hope that this video has helped you out even just a little bit. It's pretty basic, but it explains why I like to play Rammus as an AP Offtank instead of just as a straight tank. And so try it out and see if you can do well with this build, and if so, come back and give me a like or let me know. And if you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more kinds of videos, please do subscribe. I appreciate that you watched this whole video, and I know you did till the end because you are listening to my voice right now. Thank you so much, and I hope you have yourself a fantastic day today.